30th of April 2023. Today is the anniversary of my channel, 1 year old, and I have produced almost 600 videos. Those that follow the channel will know that I am pro-Russian, and in this anniversary production, I have decided to talk about Russia, and I hope that those that listen will find it informative and interesting. Over this year I've been subjected to much abuse for my viewpoint, and I've been punished a few times by Twitter and Facebook and Google, and it was at times quite disturbing, but I worked through it. I've lost some friends, made some enemies, got a few haters, but I also gained new friends, new contacts, and I learned a lot. Most importantly, I managed to ditch the shackles of a lifetime of brainwashing. Today I'm a happy person. My mind is free of the indoctrination, poison, and the value of objectivity was reaffirmed. I hope that those that follow my channel also learn something from the things that I have produced over the past year. A while back I stumbled on this piece written by a Russian journalist, and it grabbed my mind. Earlier tonight I decided to use it as my anniversary gift. It's from a journalist in the Donbass. Only in the delusional brain of an Eastern collaborator is NATO fighting for freedom and democracy in Ukraine. The Anglo-Saxons themselves do not hide the fact that in Ukraine the West is trying to subdue the recalcitrant colony, and if they succeed, then Russia will simply cease to exist. Think about that. Let me show you what the West wants to destroy and what the Russians are fighting for. Quite the opposite from what we were made to believe of Russia. To us, Russia was presented as primitive and backward. These slides tells a different story. Back to the journalist. For some time now, these are no longer horror stories of Kremlin propaganda. This is not a conspiracy of Solovyov or Kiselyov or someone else. All this was presented in a completely straightforward narration, officially, publicly, in the form of detailed plans and strategies by the Western elites. They no longer hide their plans. Do not pretend that they are interested in some kind of normal relationship. They directly say that the dismemberment of Russia is their official goal. This is confirmed by high-ranking Western politicians. They call it decolonization. But what does it matter what it is called? That's a mouthful. And those that follow the Ukraine thing knows that that is true. Let me show you some images from Bernal, a city on the banks of the Obi River in Altai Kral region of Siberia. I am sure most of you did not even know there was a place like this. The reality is, there are many places like this. And this is what the West wants to destroy. Back to the journalist. The point is not in the name, but in the idea itself. To squeeze Russia back into Muscovy, to deprive it of access to the seas, to take away natural resources, to deprive it of the opportunity to use the due strategic advantage of its position at the crossroads of all roads between Europe and Asia, north and south. And that is very important that we take note of that, because it is no secret that the West actually wants to destroy Russia. Why? They're after the resources. That is what they want. Do they care for the people? No, they don't. We all know it. We've seen what they do. I mean, look at what they did to Libya. Look at what they did to Iraq, what they did to Syria, what they did to Yemen, what they did to Afghanistan, to Yugoslavia. Millions of people killed, and all of it to get to the resources. Take a look at the next slideshow. These are the families that the West wants to destroy. Ordinary people like you and me, with people they love and care for. People that just want to live in peace and enjoy their families. This is what the Russians are fighting for. Back to the journalist. At the same time, Russia has nowhere to retreat, which is understandable. Literally, death awaits behind the retreat. But it turns out that America seems to have nowhere to retreat either, at least in the next couple of years. In 2025, in a couple of years, they will have the inauguration of a new president. And only after that it will be possible to talk with someone there about something. In the meantime, relations between the two superpowers will be held hostage by a demented Joe and the current gang of Democrats, who will lead their sleeping puppet president wherever they please. The next slideshow is just a reminder of what the Russians must do to preserve their lives and those of their loved ones, the tools they must use to prevent their country from being destroyed. I deliberately chose these images just to illustrate my point. The Russians have horrific weapons, and most of it is modern. The West tries to convince us that the Russians only have remnants from the Soviet era, and is no match for NATO. Well, realities on the ground in the Donbass have wiped that illusion off the table. Back to the journalist. Most likely before the winter of 2024-2025, the US recognition of its defeat is close to zero, because this will mean official recognition of the defeat of the current government, and after that, a complete, total loss of even the slightest chance of winning the presidential race. Therefore, no détente is even worth waiting for, as the escalation of the situation will continue until the last moment. The West, in those economic conditions that are only getting worse, has two options for the development of events: a civil war on its own territory, or a war with Russia on someone else's. Yes, the risk of increased radiation increases dramatically. However, this is theoretical, and its own population is already quite practically rebelling. So, be ready for military escalation, not for the first time. And I find this piece quite insightful, and I hope you also think about what the guy is saying. Now, when I read this article, it made me think a lot. The current openly published and promoted moral decay of the West is very disturbing to me. And the fact that Putin, as a white leader, yes, a white leader, is the only leader that are openly rejecting the perversity, rejects the WEF and their New World Order, and that must make every decent person in the West think long and hard. Russia protects the family in their constitution. No parent number 1 and parent number 2 shit there. Russia has adopted laws that prohibits the poisoning of the minds of their children. Russian government protects the Christian Orthodox religion. There are many images of Putin participating in religious rituals. Which other Western leader have you seen doing that? Russian law prohibits any kind of discrimination based on religion, race, culture, gender, language. Russia has 190 ethnic groups and over 2,000 cultural groups. We as Westerners have been pumped full of lies by the cabal media to such an extent that Russophobia has turned into hate and racism. It is my opinion that they are doing it to protect themselves. They know that if we, the people, find out what the truth is of the Russian society, we will turn on them and say, we want that. That is their biggest nightmare, because they cannot deliver. They are morally bankrupt and intellectually challenged. We want a leader that openly practices the Christian religion and almost fanatically look out for the good of his people and this country and his country. That is what Putin is. They simply fall short, so they dehumanize Russians and try to control us by fear. In March 2022, I went through a hell of a mental shock when I was reprimanded by a journalist and told to go and research the Donbass. For almost a week, I spent 18 hours a day reading, devouring every piece of information I could get hold of on Ukraine, and obviously there were crossovers into Russia. The more I read, the more disturbed I got. It is a hard thing to accept and digest the fact that you have been lied to basically your whole life. Fortunately, my brain was already prepared for it after the mental fraud committed with the pestilence. And that is how I converted from Russophobia to a place that I had to make peace with the fact that the West is brutal and evil. Well, now I'm going to stop. Those that follow my channel are well aware of what my sentiments are, and I must say, I'm glad I went through that conversion. I'm just sorry it did not happen 20 years. I look at the crop of Western leaders and they fill me with disgust. They do not have a clue of what statesmanship or diplomacy is, and just want to make war. My prediction is the Western Empire will implode. One more slideshow, and this one is for the men that follow my channel. It is no secret that I'm a great admirer of women, and I have huge respect for them. And the artist in me appreciate the beauty they present. Enjoy these Slavic models, and remember, this is also what the Russian soldiers fight for. All worth fighting for, I would say. There's a few good-looking women. I hope you enjoyed this show as much as I enjoyed producing it. Enjoy your Sunday wherever you are, and never stop asking why.